Serious, what is the most disrespectful thing a guest ever did in your home? While we were out, house guests staying with us rearranged our furniture and artwork according to their own taste. This is my Mel every time she visits. She also tries to throw out my furniture. Mine used to like to go through the cupboards and try to take things home. Once it was a dish I had bought the previous weekend and she tried to say it was hers. Your comment just made me flash back to that time of my life and the pure age Mel would make me feel. Fuck that devil woman. This was a guy I was seeing. My son at the time was 2.5. He had a teddy he brought everywhere with him. It didn't bother me cause kids like comfort toys. Well, this guy had an issue with it. So we are out on my balcony and my son had showed this guy his teddy bear. He had grabbed the bear, threw it over the balcony, and told my son to grow up, bears are for babies. Darren, you're a dick, I still cannot stand you. The guy who we invited to our weekly poker game, after he creepily found out about it from a mutual friend and invited himself. It was around Christmas time, so he brings 2 fruitcakes and tells my roommate and I, girls, in front of our other friends, mostly guys, that the cakes are just for us because they are low in sat fat, his obnoxious way of saying saturated fat, and girls don't wanna get fat. He then proceeded to play like an absolute dickhead, splashing the pot, trying to bet under the minimum, folding out of turn, etc. He was loud and rude and kept saying weird things all night. Just as everyone was getting thoroughly sick of him, he turns to me and asks me if I want to go on a date sometime. In front of about 12 other people. I was not in any way attracted to this guy, nor had I done anything to encourage him to think so. I told him no as nicely as I could, but goddamn it, he persisted. He asked me out again and said, if you say no this time everyone will know it's because you think you're better than me and I'm not good enough to go out with you. Of course, I wanted to tell him that I thought he was an asshole and that's why I didn't want to go out with him, but I didn't want to end up having a SVU episode based on my gruesome murder. I sputtered out something about not wanting to date anyone at the moment and he more or less accepted it and shut up. We never invited him back and we had poker at someone else's house for a while after, just to be sure he wouldn't show up. He later got arrested for threatening to shoot his neighbor over parking spot he'd shoveled out. I used to live in a party house and several people tried to get into the room where this drunk girl was passed out. The night turned into my roommate and I taking turns guarding the hallway. It's been nearly a decade, I'm still disgusted by everybody. A friend of mine decided to take a piss in our bottle of hand wash in the bathroom because he didn't like my stepdad. When he came back laughing I asked him what was up and he told me, expecting me to find it hilarious. I did not. I also had another friend stay over one night and he stole my HDD out of my Xbox 360. Edit, this was 5 years ago and 7 years ago respectively. They are no longer my friends. You can stop telling me to find better friends now. You better find better friends. I can't remember who it was a family member. My son was around too, and he was getting himself an apple or an orange. He'd get it off the counter, peel the sticker off, wash it, and proceed to peel it, or just eat it. Well, as he was washing his fruit, a guest goes to him and takes his fruit and tells him he's too young to be getting his own food. I told them I taught him how to get a snack and it's okay if he wants to eat some fruit. They insist that he should ask first, and when he said please, they washed it and prepared the fruit for him. To me that's disrespectful, because I teach my son how to take care of himself and he gets so happy when he can do more things for himself, and they took that away from him and made him beg for something that was already his. Had a friend staying with us for a while. She was trying to get back on her feet. I had just adopted a new kitten, about 10 weeks old. One day, I'm standing in the kitchen, talking with said friend, when I hear my new kitty meowing, loudly, but sounds kind of muffled. I proceed to start looking around for her. She sounded distressed. Said friend just stands there, with a kind of crooked smile. So, I asked her where the kitten was. She said she had no idea. The meows are getting less and less, and I'm walking all over the place, waiting for the next meow, to lead me to her. She was in the point freezer. WTF. I pretty much screamed at the psycho upon retrieving my shivering, confused and miserable kitten. WTF did you do? She smiled and said, I thought you knew, cats love to be cold. I told her, well, that's just great, and since she claimed to love and understand cats so much, she will appreciate how cold she would be tonight, on the street, out of my house. I told her she had about 10 minutes to get her shit and get out, or not only would she be getting an ass kicking, I would be calling the police regarding her cruelty to animals. She left. Kitty survived to be 18 years old. Relative stayed at our house over the holidays and went into our room and drawers. When my wife came home, she asked my wife why does she have so much macup if she doesn't use them, and proceeded to ask if she could have some of the items she found for keeps. That sounds like something I might try when I was 9. I went out of town for 3 weeks and asked a friend to house sit. In exchange I would pay her. All I needed was mail collected and garden watered every day, takes about 25 minutes, and pick the beans and cucumbers, maybe 15 minutes. She hung out in my house all day every day playing video games. She watered the garden once, for a couple of hours, the day before I was to come back. Everything was dead. Beans and cucumbers dead on the vines, and my pumpkins and squash all got powdery mildew. I actually cried. I had cleared that garden space the previous year from 20 years of blackberry bramble and fixed the soil. When I was about 8, our family did a house swap with another family because they lived near London and we lived near the coast, so it was a change for both families and a cheap way to holiday. One of their idiot kids who stayed in my bedroom peeled off my glow-in-the-dark stickers off my bookcase because they said they were stopping them from being able to sleep, which is total fucking bullshit because there's no way they could be bright enough to stop anyone sleeping. That was 33 years ago, and as you can tell I'm completely over it now. Geez, what a brat. Just throw a blanket or something over it. You don't disrespect a man's stickers. A friend was house sitting for me while I had a long weekend away. They said they would stop by 2 days out of the 5 to make sure everything was good and water my plants. They showed up the day I left, unplugged my fridge and left. Came home to everything rotten, and it smelled like someone was murdered in the fridge. Called and asked what happened, and she said she was mad at me because her brand new boyfriend said I was cute. I was in a committed relationship with another woman at the time. Literally the last person to be interested in her scumbag boyfriend. We weren't friends after that, and it took everything in me to not go kick her ass. I'm not a fighter by nature, but that tested me. One summer while my family was up north, my best friend at the time asked if her and my other good friend could use my pool. I said okay and told her where the key was. She ended up throwing not 1, but 3 house parties at my house without my knowledge. My grandmother even walked in on one because she was there to water the plants. The entire house was trashed. There was bleach spots on my lawn, barn water stains on the kitchen tablecloth, and broken glass everywhere. Wasn't friends with her after that. She's actually here right now and just put my mom's homemade maple syrup in the trash. She threw out my night mouth guard once. When he left the house, he didn't shut the door. I'm not saying he didn't lock the door, I'm saying he didn't even latch the front door. I came home, and the front door is wide open, and you can see inside the house from the street. I'm a woman who lives alone. Fuck you, Ben. When I was in high school, a couple of friends were staying the night when one of them decided to grab a case of 10,000 airsoft pellets and fling them all over my room. For 10 years, up to the point where I moved out of my parents' house, I was able to find airsoft pellets somewhere in my room. One of the most blatantly douchey things I can think of. A similarly funny story. My brother once lived with a bunch of his buddies renting a house. One day one of them gets a big bag of packing peanuts from the post office and dumps it down the stairs to make a waterfall. Then they sat there for months. Dude never picked them up. Anytime someone would tell him to pick them up, the dude would grab a small handful, toss it in the trash, and go back to what he was doing. When pressed to do more, he would say there's too many of them. I lived in a small house, So my dressing table was a table and wall mirror near the front door. One day we had people over while it was raining, and my husband's cousin came in, picked up my hairbrush from the whole table, and brushed her wet dog with it. I had a friend I hadn't seen in years that lives in another state, decide to surprise me and fly down when I was 2 weeks postpartum, after a C-section to boot, strike one. Then she spent the entire weekend hitting on my husband. He's a super laid back guy and even he was wildly uncomfortable. We haven't spoken since. This girl stayed over at my house after the pub. I went to bed with my fella, woke up, girl was gone. Walked into the bathroom later that day, place stank of shit. Eventually pulled back the shower curtain, there was a jug I use for washing my kid's hair. She'd shit sort of half in the jug, half in the bath. I mean it was an odd enough thing in the first place, but there's a toilet in that bathroom, which you have to walk past to get to the bath. I got a message on Facebook that evening saying back quote I'm pooped, thanks for letting me stay. I confronted her, and she claimed she had no idea about it. Obviously she's never been invited over since. Just rehabbed my first home. We hired a contractor to come hang new doors. He showed up with his kids. Whatever, I guess he couldn't find a sitter. Dude does a mediocre job, actually fucked up one of the doors, and tried hiding it with spackle. I later found the word poopy written on the freshly painted wall in the room his kids were playing in.